Wouldn't it be better if you put her someplace?
You mean an institution? A madhouse?
You just found the marble in the oatmeal. You're a lucky, lucky, lucky little boy. Do you know why? You get to drink from the fire hose! Okay, you ready? Open wide! I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Hey, you want to see crazy?
You really are crazy.
I don't get it, Doc. I mean, how can all this be happening? It's like we're in hell or something.
No, it's Hill Valley, although I can't imagine hell being much worse.
Now you want to get nuts? Shut up, you freak! Come on! I said shut up! It's a madhouse! A madhouse!
Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of Movie Madhouse. My name is Alex Brunel. Travis Fishburne is here.
I am?
Oh, I don't see you.
Oh, you don't see me.
No, it is frozen on an empty frame. So I really like that we hear you talking, but we just see an empty frame of your microphone. So
hi, everybody.
Travis is here. So
this week we're reviewing The Invisible Man.
Yes. So Travis, you sort that out. I'm gonna cut to me real quick and just do this thing. I got this nice thing in the mail from California to help the citizens vote by mail should they need to come November. I highly encourage you, as a responsible adult of the United States of America, to make sure that you are registered to vote, and if you need to, vote by mail. Yeah, that's my PSA for the week. And Travis is back.
Okay,
cool. And if you hear helicopters overhead, don't worry, that's just the police state. Travis?
Awesome. So go out and vote, everybody.
So sorry I stole your thunder on the intro. We didn't get to do the nice intro. I didn't see you, so I was just like, I guess Travis isn't back at the keyboard.
No, it's okay. My camera has never done that before. I don't know what that was. It was literally just a picture up on the screen.
That was pretty good.
This week we will be reviewing the 1994 Disney film Blank Check.
Mm-hmm. And I think we learned some new things about Blank Check this time around.
Mm-hmm. Yes, our minds are not so blank when it comes to this movie anymore.
Is there anything we wanted to discuss before we get into this fairly troubling film?
Yeah, probably the one thing, a little bit of news, and it's sad news this week. We lost... oh my gosh. Why am I blanking on the name?
Do you want me to say the name?
Yeah, you say the name.
Wilford Brimley.
We lost Wilford Brimley.
Mr. Wilford Brimley of The Thing, Cocoon, Diabetes, and most notably in his entire career, Ewoks: The Battle for Endor. Yeah, big bummer. He was well aged. He had lived a lot of life and experienced a lot, I would assume, but it's a loss. It's really sad. He's not in this movie, but there's a lot of people that had to do with this movie that are also now deceased and very sad.
Yeah.
Also.
No. But I just wanted to highlight him because this is the first time somebody has passed that we've covered some of their work.
Yeah.
Recently.
I think that's true.
So.
Yeah, that was a big bummer to read. Yeah, I don't think I read a lot of other interesting stuff this week. I didn't read any Zack Snyder news that I want to complain about. So I think we're good there.
It's kind of disappointing.
I know. I would love to continue complaining about Zack Snyder for about 3 minutes every show, but I just we can't force it. We just have to complain when there's stuff to complain about.
No Zack Snyder minute. Instead, we've got the Blake Snyder hour.
The Blake Snyder hour. This one, I think we're going to run a little long on this one, everybody. Just a warning, spoiler-filled long podcast about Blank Check tonight. Which I'll just read the IMDb synopsis. A young boy inadvertently gains possession of a check for $1 million and proceeds to spend it, unaware that the gangsters to whom it belongs are in pursuit. And yeah, that's more or less.
He fabricated the $1 million part.
He did fabricate the $1 million part. That is true. In a pretty crafty way, using speech synthesis, using early 90s speech synthesis in a way that's no speech synthesis in the 90s sounded that good. It was an actor doing a robot voice, but you know.
Yeah. And the way the check printed out so perfectly, let me tell you, I work where you like print checks, and I have like almost gone insane trying to line them up sometimes.
Yeah.
And the fact that he printed it so perfectly that first try.
That baffled me even as a child, because I remember in the 90s a friend of mine who had like a dot matrix printer, a color dot matrix printer, and like greeting card software that you could print your own custom greeting cards on. That was a huge novelty to me, and I remember I made like a handful of really stupid greeting cards when I just went over to my friend John's house, and yeah, it was difficult to get those to look correct in the software that was designed for them and the printer that it was designed to be used with. So I can only imagine printing a check would be a total crapshoot and now. I tried to look up some background about the movie, and there might be people who did a better job of this than me. I have to confess, I didn't put in as much work into that aspect as I probably should have, but I couldn't really find anything. And if I were to guess, I would say that this is a spec script that Disney picked up in the wake of the success of Home Alone. That would be my assumption.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of Home Alone similarities in this movie.
Lots. And it's mostly just it's mostly not plot stuff. It's mostly in terms of the hijinks and the way the hijinks kind of carry out, especially toward the end. But it's obviously a huge influence on the whole thing. I did do a fair bit of looking into the background on some of the key personnel in this movie, which I think I think this is like more interesting than a lot of movies that we touch on and discuss who worked on them. It was directed by a guy named Rupert Wainwright, who isn't like hugely well known as a feature filmmaker. Following this, his only other really notable titles theatrically were Stigmata in 1999 and the 2005 remake of The Fog, which is bad. And I don't think there's a feature since, but he continues to direct commercials. Most notably, his earliest directing work was all on music videos, and he is actually responsible for the first music videos by NWA, specifically Straight Outta Compton and Express Yourself. Also the earliest videos of MC Hammer, specifically Turn This Mother Out, You Can't Touch This, Too Legit to Quit, and the home video Please Hammer, Don't Hurt 'Em, the movie. Which is an hour, so I don't know how much it actually qualifies as a movie.
I love that title so much.
But I just found it fascinating that he's from England, like this English filmmaker who dabbled a little bit in acting actually before he started directed friggin' Straight Outta Compton, like the classic seminal gangster rap music video, and then his first theatrical feature. He had directed a TV feature prior to this, but his first theatrical feature was Blank Check. And that is just an insane trajectory for a director, I think. Notable, not insane. Things like that happen all the time. Peter Jackson directs children's films now, basically. But, and bad taste. Anyway, that's a whole thing. So, Rupert Wainwright, director. That's very interesting to me. Blake Snyder, who we talked about a little bit last week, is one of the screenwriters on this film, and he was the writer of the Save the Cat series of books on screenwriting, which were at least at one point, I don't know how much they still are, but at least at one point were considered something of an industry standard for aspiring screenwriters. And you can see why watching this movie. Like, in a nuts and bolts way, this movie works very, very efficiently, very cleanly, and very well, in like a mechanical nuts and bolts plot kind of way. And we will talk more about that when we're talking about the movie itself. His only other notable screenplay credit was the movie Stop or My Mom Will Shoot from 1991.
Yes.
But he did frequently work as a consultant, script doctor, and educator before his untimely death in 2009.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that that book, is so popular. I've recommended that book to people, and then actually looking at his IMDb and seeing like, oh, that's it?
Yeah, that's it. 2 movies. That always baffled me, too. But I mean, I know that there's writers that are like that. Like, I know if you look at, like, John August's IMDb, there's not maybe a huge list of titles, but John August has worked on like a quarter of like all the movies that have come out in the last 20 years or something, just as a script doctor or something here or there. Like the whole world of script doctors is this mysterious and weird thing that by the very nature of what it is, doesn't get explored or discussed all that much in specifics, and can keep people working like uncredited and silently through the course of their careers. I don't know if that's the case for Colby Carr, the co-writer on this movie, who this is his only produced feature. This is his only credit on IMDb. He was an assistant to somebody on some movie in 1984. That's the only other thing IMDb says for Colby Carr. The composer...
Should have tracked him down.
I didn't really want to.
Okay.
he may be a professor now. I kept getting like LinkedIn and professor hits for a person named Colby Carr, but I couldn't, I refused to log back into my LinkedIn account to ever look at LinkedIn pages. So I don't know if that's the same guy, but it might be. Nicholas Pike was the composer on this movie, and I clicked on the name because that name sounded familiar. I think I was just thinking of Captain Pike from Star Trek, and I think that's the only reason it sounded familiar to me.
Like, oh, this guy isn't in a futuristic wheelchair.
No, he's not. He is a film composer who is still working. And he's got a long history. I'm just going to highlight a few titles that this show has crossed paths with before that he composed for.
Ready for one of
Critters 2.
Yes.
Chud 2, Bud the Chud. Erie, Indiana, and Star Kid. He scored all of those. We've run across those in some way or another with tangential connections in other movies we've covered. Also notably, he scored a subsequent Rupert Wainwright movie, The Sadness of Sex, in 1998, and an episode of the TV show Fear Itself called Echoes that Wainwright also directed in 2009. So, even for many years since, off and on, Wainwright would still hire Pike as a composer on his stuff. And also apparently some interstitial music for an MC Hammer home video. So, more Wainwright stuff. During the opening credits of the movie, I was totally shocked to learn that the DP was Bill Pope, who I think by name.
Oh yeah.
Great cinematographer, really interesting history. We could do a series of podcasts literally just talking about the work of Bill Pope. He's from Bowling Green, Kentucky. He started in music videos and commercials in the 80s, some of which he also directed. He did videos for Janet Jackson, Peter Gabriel, Sting, The Bangles, Metallica, Chris Isaak. His first feature was Darkman. His other notable titles include basically all of them, but I'm going to highlight Army of Darkness, Clueless, Bound, which leads into him shooting all 3 Matrix movies for the Wachowskis, and not the current one. He recently gave an interview about actually kind of what hell the sequels were to make, which is why he didn't return for 4. He shot this movie Zero Effect. Have you ever seen Zero Effect, Travis? Bill Pullman and Ben Stiller, directed by Jake Kasdan. It's really good. It's this weird, absurdist neo-noir comedy from the late 90s. Ben Stiller plays a character different than his 2 characters he always plays.
Oh, okay.
So it's notable for that at the very least. And Bill Pullman is just really fantastic in it. Really good movie there. Shot the pilot of Freaks and Geeks, Bill Pope. He shot Team America, World Police.
Yes.
And Matt and Trey hired him specifically because they wanted a big shot action director to shoot their puppet action movie. He DP'd Spider-Man 2 and 3 and Scott Pilgrim for Edgar Wright. Recent big titles include Alita, Battle Angel, and Charlie's Angels. So, Bill Pope is great. All hail Bill Pope.
Has Bill Pope, I'm looking at this now, has he ever won an Oscar?
I don't think so.
That's crazy.
His movies aren't really Oscar baity movies, but yeah.
It's just crazy. Yeah.
No, he has an unbelievable body of work and has contributed, just stylistically, so much to the language of action cinema. I
know.
In his 20, 30 years of work. It's insane. He's a major key voice in the way action movies continue to look today. Never won an Oscar, but,
Yeah. When Matrix won for Best Visual Effects at the 2000 Oscars, they should have thrown him in there.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I did take note of the two editors because I thought the editing in the movie was pretty tight. Neither of them have huge resumes, but Hubert de la Boyerie, I think, sorry, only a small handful of credits, but I wanted to mention that titles that he did that relate to money include Tango and Cash, Other People's Money, Mo Money, and Blank Check. And Jill Savitt, the other editor, some notable titles: Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Stir of Echoes, Bang Bang You're Dead, and uncredited work on a weird 1993 movie called Frauds, starring Phil Collins and who's the guy in Frauds? I don't remember, but it's one of these movies that, like, you kind of don't think it actually exists. Like, maybe you'd see the VHS box or you'd see the poster and you're like, is that real? And you probably wouldn't believe it was real until you're actually watching it, but it's real. Frauds exists. Nelson Coates was the production designer. I wanted to highlight him because I've seen a surprising amount of his work. CB4, Kiss the Girls, Disturbing Behavior, Stir of Echoes, Imposter, Frailty, The Proposal, Guilt Trip, 50 Shades sequels, Crazy Rich Asians. Continuing to work. This is good. This is good stuff. I'm happy that this guy's career has, like, gone solidly for 25 years. I happened to click on Mark Lambert Bristol, who did the storyboards on this movie, and I thought, might be interesting. What else did he do storyboards on? Interesting titles: Dazed and Confused, Texas Chainsaw, The Next Generation, Beautician and the Beast, also Kiss the Girls, Thin Red Line, Austin Powers 2, The Tree of Life, 2017 The Mummy, and the upcoming Mission Impossible film. So I think he just basically he's like Tom Cruise's storyboard artist now.
Wow.
And one more obscure crew member on this movie, the boom operator. His name looked really familiar to me. The boom operator was Jack M. Nietzsche Jr., whose other stuff that he's been a boom operator on includes River's Edge, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, House Arrest, which seems like a movie very suited for this podcast, Stigmata, so another, Wainwright hired the same sound team on his following feature that he did on this movie, and Knocked Up. Notable parentage, why this name jumped out at me, is his dad is Jack Nietzsche, composer of many films, notably including Cruising, Razor's Edge, and Starman. His themes for Starman are, like, all-time, like, really great sci-fi love themes. I would stack that up against any of the stuff that whatever. I don't know what stuff gets most commonly thrown around in that category, but really great music in that movie, and one of the few John Carpenter movies that John Carpenter did not write the score for, and Jack Nietzsche did an amazing job doing that. Yeah, that's what I got on the personnel. I found that, like, hugely interesting. All of that. Yeah. Just such a widespread and an interesting array of humans. Yeah, what do you got about the cast? I know I have some things to say about the cast as you talk about them, but let's get started on that.
All right. Well, the cast, I mean, we start with the lead, and it's going to be hard for me to talk about the lead without getting into Trek connections, which we do later, but I'm going to hold on.
Sure.
And that's Brian Bonsall, who played Preston, and he was most notable for Before This, Family Ties, and he was in the Patrick Swayze film Fatherhood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he was a child actor.
And he didn't do much film-wise after this. Is that correct?
No, not at all. And in fact, 1995, he quit acting and moved with his mother and stepfather to Boulder, Colorado.
Interesting.
Which is where he is till this day. He's not left Colorado.
And should I bring up this graphic you sent me?
Yeah, you can go ahead and do that. And Brian Bonsall had a few unfortunate things happen. There was some unfortunate assault charges and whatnot throughout the 2000s with
so polite about skirting around a guy who beat up his girlfriend.
Yeah, and he seems to have cleaned up a bit. I guess he's been sober for the past 10 years. He's since married, has a kid as of last year.
Oh, wow.
And according to his Instagram, things seem to be be going a little better for him personally.
That's
but
good.
It seems like the 2000s were a trying time for Brian.
I think for many of us, but
Yeah,
it seems
which
like
is,
especially for Brian.
It's just unfortunate, like all these child actors.
Yeah.
If they don't have a lasting career that, like, you know, in which they stay in the business, it seems like it's just like really messes with them. You know, there are so many instances of just kind of like things going south for them when they get older.
There is there's a recent HBO documentary actually called Showbiz Kids that was directed by Bill S. Preston himself, Alex Winter, who is also a child actor. So having this stuff, I haven't watched it yet. I need to take the time, but I've heard it's like really great, and especially great coming from a person who understands the subject matter that they're talking about in the documentary, rather than an outsider who's looking into the world of child actors, like someone who was there and who knows what these experiences are like and how to talk to people who are also going through the same kinds of stuff. So I'm actually psyched to watch that. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah. No, it's just like reminding me of like because Jake Lloyd, I know, has some issues now with everything that he went through. And I meant to tell you this. There was like an interesting anecdote about Jake Lloyd on the set of The Phantom Menace that I heard recently.
Oh, yeah?
Where, like, during lunch, Dan Madsen, who is the guy who he created the fan club for Star Wars and ran it. And I guess during his set visit to episode 1,
that is the way, which is hugely unfortunate. And I mean, like, I can't say that. Unfortunately, I have to say that, like, I've seen a degree of that. Like, I've worked on children's films that star children, and I've seen parents who are, like, amazing and very protective of their children and very much, you know, there to support their children. And then I've also seen parents who are using their child to try to gain something. And those are really upsetting experiences. Especially when you're saddled with, like, a studio teacher who is legit and union but doesn't give a crap. And yeah, like, this stuff is like really pervasive, and that stuff was like early enough in my career that I didn't have a voice, and, you know, these were non-union projects, and that's a whole other thing, but it's messed up practices continue to this day is my point.
Yeah.
So yeah, be nice to child actors. They are probably getting screwed.
Yeah, no. I'd say it's probably really important for the child actors, if they're interested in it, like, that it needs to be something that, like, is a passion for them.
Totally.
And they're doing it and the parents are supporting them, rather than, like you said, those instances where the parents are forcing their lives into a direction that's gonna...
Totally. And I've worked with those kids, like, the talented, like, the kids who have the passion too. Like, I've worked with, like, who is this? There was like a friggin', like, 7-year-old or something I was working with on something, or like a 6-year-old who was, like, improving a dinner scene, basically just like improving family dinner banter with the adults and with, like, the teenager, like, just totally holding their own in character. It was amazing. Like, it was obviously what this girl was born to do. And I saw her in, like, a legitimate movie, like, a couple years later, and I'm like, yep, knew it.
Wow.
I don't remember her name now, but it's great to see that kind of stuff. It's actually really amazing to see young talent when it's, like, really there and really passionate. And on the flip side, very sad to see the opposite.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
So, with that part out of the way, then we get to Miguel Ferreira, who played Quigley. He is most notable for being in RoboCop, Traffic, NCIS Los Angeles, and Twin Peaks.
Albert Rosenfeld.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say about Miguel. I love Miguel Ferreira with, like, deeply. Any performance by him is just totally enraptured. I love watching him. Happened to be, just happenstance, I recently bought the Arrow Special Edition Blu-ray of RoboCop, and I watched that with Angela on Sunday following Blank Check, or on Saturday following Blank Check. And the thing that I love about Miguel's performance in Blank Check especially comparing it to his performance in RoboCop and comparing it to the performances of Tone Loc and Michael Lerner in Blank Check, the other villains in Blank Check, who you'll get to and who we'll talk about. But when we're talking about the performances of Tone Loc and Michael Lerner in Blank Check, they're very cartoonish. They're very over the top. They're very broad. They're very much Disney children's film villain performances. Mm-hmm. The performance Miguel gives in Blank Check is almost the same performance that he gives in RoboCop. He does not water down the villainous nature of the character he plays at all for the sake of the fact that he's in a children's film. He's just as scary and just as vicious, just without curse words or weapons in Blank Check. And I love that energy was brought into this movie.
He needs to be the straight man villain for those two to play off of.
Absolutely. If all three of them had been cartoonish, I wouldn't have enjoyed that subplot nearly as much. So rest in peace, Miguel. Wonderful, one-of-a-kind performer who I miss seeing on screen, because he's one of those guys who you'd just be watching stuff and he'd pop up, you know, and that was always just a joy when Miguel Ferreira would pop up on the screen, and we don't get that joy anymore, and that's very sad.
Yeah, there's something about him I learned when researching this is his mother is Rosemary Clooney.
Oh yeah, and he's
George Clooney's
cousin. That's right.
Yeah. So that was crazy.
I knew that and had totally forgotten that. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. So we got Michael Lerner, who played Biederman, and he's Barton Fink, Godzilla, which is what I know him most for. Playing Mayor Ebert, who is a very obvious dig at Roger Ebert, I feel like, in that film.
It's been so long since I've seen the 98 Godzilla, I can't remember it in that kind of specifics.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think I think Roland Emmerich, or it might have been the writer, I don't know who decided to make a character that was like, we're going to like bash critics, specifically Roger Ebert.
Wouldn't be the first time in a major Hollywood release. Lady in the Water.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. Oh, Lady in the Water.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And then, like you said, Tone Loc, who played Juice. And he, you know, everybody knows him most notably for being a musician for Wild Thing and Funky Cole Medina. Mm-hmm. And as well as, you know, his acting career. He was in Ace Ventura. He was in Heat. And then he did a lot of like voices and stuff. He was in Fern Gully. I remember him as a kid, hearing him in Fern Gully, and I'm like, I like instantly know. I'm like, it's that guy. It's the same guy who sings that song on the radio. Yeah,
was he? Now that I'm remembering his voice work, was he Seabear in Seabear and Jamal?
Oh, he is not. That's not one of the pieces of work from him that I added as notable, but it very well could be.
Yeah, I'm looking. Yep, Tone Loc.
Yeah. Yep. I am very surprised just looking at his IMDb that he's didn't do more voices. He did a fair amount. He was in like Titan 8. He was also in Surf Ninjas, which we'll get to.
Oh, eventually. Yeah, he was.
But I just feel like his voice is so distinctive. I'm like, why wasn't he just a voice actor more?
Yeah.
Because his IMDb is like 52 credits, whereas it should be 100 plus.
I totally agree. Fun Alex Brunel fact. The very first time I saw Devo, who you know very well is the passion of mine, is this band, but people listening may not. But the very first time I saw Devo in Morningside Park in New York City as part of a Nike running event, Tone Loc opened.
Oh wow!
So I saw Tone Loc open, and during Funky Cole Medina, he had the ladies get on stage, and the ladies were middle-aged moms and like maybe like late 50s ladies with fanny packs, and they're all up on stage dancing around and grinding for Funky Cole Medina, and that was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my life. It was amazing. That was 2004. That was 16 years ago now. Holy crap.
Wow.
Yeah, Tone Loc.
Yeah. And then we got Karen Duffy, who plays Shay Stanley, and she was in Reality Bites. She also had like a small role in Last Action Hero.
Yeah, I saw that on her IMDb, and I'm like, I don't remember her, and she's credited as her name. So I
Yeah,
have
so
to,
which means it's got to be like some extra of some kind.
yeah, or maybe in the police station scene. Yeah. She was
And
also
then-
an MTV VJ. She went by Duff.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Wow. So like more, music video stuff going on.
Oh, totally. I mean, like that's like, yeah. I didn't really realize that, but you're totally right. Like I'm sure Rupert Wainwright knew Bill Pope from music video world, and like yeah, casting an MTV VJ and a musician in the film. Those seem like very easy leaps to make for a person who came from directing music videos. And I don't know if you noted this also, but she was also in Dumb and Dumber playing a character also called Shay.
Yes, I did. That's like the most notable thing I know her from is Dumb
same.
and Dumber.
Same.
The fact that her character's name was Shay as well, I'm like, that's interesting.
Yep. Both in 1994. So couldn't have been weird crosstalk. It was just a total coincidence she played Shay twice in the same year. Might be fun to imagine to rewatch Dumb and Dumber and imagine she's the same character as she plays in Blank Check, which applies to a thing that I like to call the theory of total media interconnectivity.
Yeah,
which
they're
is
both in the police force or law enforcement.
Exactly, which is the underlying idea of that theory is everything takes place in the same universe and actors are playing the same character in everything they appear in. So it doesn't work, but it's interesting to think about.
It can work to an extent, but then starts to
my postulation
collapse.
of Suburban Commando as a Star Wars film is absolutely part of the theory of total media interconnectivity.
Yeah. And then we've got Rick DeCommon, who played Henry, the driver. He's awesome comedic character actors in Groundhog Day, The Burbs, Spaceballs, Scary Movie, and Gremlins 2, The New Batch.
Oh yes, he's great. He's a wonderful comic actor. He's just absolutely wonderful. You can tell a lot of the stuff that he does in this movie is improv too, and it's like really good.
Yeah, he was also in Last Action Hero.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, someone else that we lost as well. So.
Oh gosh.
I know.
This movie, there's a lot of dead people stuff going on in this movie. It's sad.
It's interesting because next we've got James Reborn, who played Fred Waters, the father, and he was in Talented Mr. Ripley and Independence Day and The Game. But again, he's a guy you see and you're like, oh, him.
Yeah. And he also passed away a handful of years ago.
And then Jane Atkinson played Sandra Waters, the mother, and she was in Free Willy, The Village, and she was in quite a few episodes of House of Cards in 24.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then from last week, we've got Michael Faustino coming in to play one of the brothers, Ralph Waters.
Oh, I didn't even realize that was the same guy. Holy crap. You are totally right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's...
Oh, he was also in A Gnome Named Norm.
Yes.
Oh, A Gnome Named Norm, the only film directed by Stan Winston. And very weird. Super weird movie.
I've never seen it.
That's one of the most... That's, like, we've reviewed movies less appropriate for this podcast on this podcast than that movie.
I'm like, should this be going on the list?
It should really be. It should have been one of the first movies we did, honestly. But yeah, I would absolutely put the terrifying and weird movie that is A Gnome Named Norm, starring Anthony Michael Hall and a gnome named Norm.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd be a great one to cover.
Continue with the Michael Faustino adventure.
We're gonna review the entire filmography of Michael Faustino, including TV movies like Where Pigeons Go to Die. No, I'm just kidding. We're never watching Where Pigeons Go to Die.
Never say never. And then
we probably won't.
That's really it with the main cast of this film. As I'm clicking through all of the smaller roles and background people, there were some things going on that I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Oh, yeah?
There were at least 4 people who were in multiple episodes of Walker, Texas Ranger. And there were 7 people who had multiple appearances in episodes of Wishbone. I don't know why.
Oh, Wishbone. I think I just read recently that like Wishbone has been re-optioned for some kind of new iteration of Wishbone. Which doesn't make any sense to me. Isn't the thing for licensing and rebooting old properties the idea that there's like brand awareness for that thing, so there's an easier gateway? So like, is the brand awareness being targeted at the parents who now have kids that grew up with Wishbone? They got to think like, I watched Wishbone as a kid.
I guarantee it.
That's got to be it, right?
If Wishbone shows up on Amazon, if there's a new Wishbone that's like on Amazon Prime or Netflix or something, I'm gonna be like, oh, let me try showing this to the boys because I remember this.
Yeah.
You know, I get the premise. It's not one of these new fandangled shows that the kids watch that I have no idea what it is I'm getting into.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's as a non-parent, these are things I don't really think about.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a cat, but he doesn't watch TV.
It's way more
also
kid
not the
appropriate than Batman the Animated Series, which I found out.
I think it was TVY7.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, that's what we got for the cast.
And,
but before we exit the cast, we're going to jump into some Trek connections.
Trek connections.
We got a big one.
And it's Miguel.
Yeah, it's Miguel. Miguel played a first officer in Star Trek III: The Search for Spock.
Yes.
And then
that was when he had I think that's the most hair I've ever seen him with on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And then we've got Brian Bonsall, who played Alexander, the son of Worf.
I had no idea that he played Alexander.
Oh,
no
wow.
clue. Very familiar with that character. Totally did not know it was the Blank Check Kid.
Yeah. During our rewatch, like I IMDb like every episode as we're watching. So as soon as Alexander showed up, I'm like, oh, he's the Blank Check Kid. So that's part of the reason why I was like, this movie has been on my mind for a while.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And then there's no other graphics right now that are pertinent, right?
Mm-mm,
okay. No. So yeah, do we have other? That's the cast, right? Now we're on.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. We can further dissect the movie, but we will. But Travis, just what were your kind of main takeaways of Blank Check watching it in your mid-30s as a parent?
Wow. It's interesting because it's a film I watched a lot as a kid.
Same.
And it's hard for me to imagine showing this to my kids and being like, yeah, like, because at the end of the day, it's not about the money, but there's such a celebratory and worshiping of the money that is so prevalent throughout the film that it's like,
yep,
this is kind of gross.
I agree with that. I found there was also like a weirdly gross attitude toward women underlying like a lot of the movie. Even just down to like Tone Loc is walking down the hall in the bank and is literally like catcalling every woman he passes. Every woman. And that continues throughout the movie. From him and from like the 11-year-old. And it's just this weird thing. And that's not even to address like the screamingest, weirdest part of the movie, which is the fact that a 30-year-old woman kisses an 11-year-old boy after they've agreed to go out on a date when he turns 18, which by itself is weird. That's weird by itself.
Which was that even 18? We did the
math.
They negotiated it down.
They negotiated it to 6 years. And he just turned 12, so he will have just turned 18 when they have their scheduled date,
okay,
quote unquote.
All right.
And I feel like that had to be on purpose. The thing that it really boils down to is, and you probably remember this attitude in the 90s as well, because the 90s I think were we grew up in the 90s. I don't know if there was this in the news before the 90s, but, I remember frequent stories in the 90s about teachers sleeping with students and that kind of thing. And when it was a male teacher and a female student, it's always statutory rape. That's the only way it was ever referred to. And when it was reversed, when it was a female teacher and a young boy, the general attitude was like, good job, kid. You got that one. And this is that as a friggin' movie.
Yeah.
Which is like, just double standard notwithstanding, it's just that on the face of it is gross. And not even, I don't even have an issue with the idea that like an 11-year-old who's starting to have these feelings and, starting to grow up and whatever would flirt with a beautiful older woman. I don't have a problem believing that.
Like his attitude, it makes sense from his perspective.
Absolutely.
Like everything that he's,
absolutely,
all of his,
yes.
what he's trying to do.
The fact that the 31-year-old woman keeps flirting back is a very weird and big issue, I think. And
it never lays any grounds,
no.
Just so you know, we are friends.
Totally. Never says that. Never acts that way. And I have to be honest, as a kid, me watching this movie, I loved that subplot because I thought Karen Duffy was just really beautiful, and it made me think that oh, perhaps I can date a beautiful older woman. So I don't think that was probably the best thing to think, and it didn't, I don't think it damaged me, but it's not good.
No.
The fact that she's flirting back the whole friggin' movie, accepts jewelry, yeah, it's really bothersome.
Yeah. Like you said, if this is reversed, if this is an 11-year-old girl and some man, and she has that and they paint that light, then you don't want to be putting that idea into young girl minds.
No, absolutely not.
And you don't want to show could you imagine showing some man in his 20s or 30s it's lip kissing some girl? It's just what?
No, dude, it's not like they're slobbering all over each other's faces. They it really looks like they just kind of touch faces more than they do actually kiss. But the fact that that's even portrayed that way in the movie is unreal to me. And it's really troubling for for me discussing the movie, because like we said, the script was written by Blake Snyder and written by this guy who really understands the nuts and bolts of screenwriting and pacing and story and these kinds of things. And on a nuts and bolts level, this movie is I'm not going to say flawless, but a extraordinarily well-built and well-oiled machine. Mm-hmm. I think, at least in the first 10 minutes, if not in the first 15 minutes, literally nothing happens or is said that doesn't directly inform plot or characters. Everything is set up, and everything is just building to the unfolding of the movie. And it's done so cleanly and so efficiently, very few movies are actually able to accomplish. But then at the same time, seems like they were just kind of gross 90s dudes. And that attitude is pervasive throughout the rest of the movie. So it's weird to talk about. On one hand, the script is really good. Also, it's very troubling.
Oh.
So
just we're finding a lot with the Moonbeam movies and all this.
Just these attitudes, these weird, outdated attitudes that you don't even see when you're a kid. You don't know that's because that just to you that's the world.
Yeah, you don't see as a kid, but at the same time.
But it tells you it tells you what you it informs what you think reality is supposed to be when you're watching this stuff as a kid.
Yeah, but I mean also the culture as well. I don't know. If I'm watching these things with my family in the 90s, how am I feeling? Am I accepting of this, or am I a little oh, I don't know if this is right.
Right. And I mean it would be a huge order to be hey mom, do you remember how you felt watching Blank Check when I was a kid? They don't remember. I don't know, my mom wouldn't remember. She barely remembers this movie exists, but I'm absolutely sure that, she took us to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, we don't, it's I guess we could look up vintage reviews and see if anybody called it out, but I kind of think that no one did. I think it wasn't until the last 10 or so years that people started reevaluating this movie and were like, what?
Yeah, because as soon as they kiss, like, one of her colleagues should have, like, stepped in and put her in handcuffs and been like,
yeah,
all right, Shay, we're gonna have to take you away now.
Yeah, like, she's on the job even. She's like an undercover FBI agent. And yeah, so is this a good moment for the disturbing similarities, JPEG?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do that. There's some disturbing similarities in the fact that, like, Brian Bonsall was in this movie, and he was also, played Alexander in the Next Gen. Both characters like to, hang out in pools or bodies of water, drinking drinks, and having inappropriate relationships with older women.
Yep.
Loxana Troy has a very similarly, like, disturbing kind of relationship with him in this episode called The Cost of Living. It's a very weird episode. The higher the fewer. It's a terrible episode, but it's also creepy in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I do remember. Yeah, even just Loxana Troy's outfit, like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not even, like, showing it off there, but, like, yeah, it's, like, very it makes you feel like, well, what are you doing? Why?
Yeah. Yeah. Star Trek did do that from time to time. Like, you remember the female Klingon officers also had that weird, like, cutout in their chest plate just so you could see their cleavage. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Sarah mentions, like, no wonder this poor kid had issues when he grew up. Like, these are the situations he was put in his, like, very formative years. So, yeah.
Go flirt with these older ladies. Oh, it's terrible.
You own the women. You are the boss, 11-year-old boy. Yeah.
All right.
No bueno.
Well.
Yeah, I mean, we can dissect the movie point by point if you want. I don't know if do we need to? We can.
No, we don't necessarily have to do that. We can,
like, I did note, like, huh?
Oh, you go ahead.
I mean, just, like, the movie opens up in a really dark and gritty way, actually. I mean, like,
it does.
It's Miguel running from the police. He's escaped from prison, which never figures back into the movie.
No, not at all.
Never figures back.
It's not like when they catch him at the end, they're like, oh, he's the guy we've been looking for.
Right. Don't escaped convicts, like, automatically go on the FBI most wanted list for the time that they're escaped? So, like, the FBI would have the face. They know this guy. And you can't just, like, fake an identity that doesn't exist for very long.
No, that's what I thought. I'm like, all right, he's claiming to be Macintosh. They're taking him in.
Right.
It's not going to be long before they figure out who he really is.
Right. It's not like the 70s when it's Bundy and he just, like, gets arrested and won't tell them his name. And they're like, sorry, don't know who this guy is. He won't tell us his name. It's the 90s. There's databases. There's computers. Like, there's fax machines. They know who this guy is. But that being said, the cinematography in the beginning, I think, is really interesting. Like, the opening is, like, this really, really dark and gritty kind of thing, and a weird kind of way to open a children's, romp. And then when we meet Preston, there is even some interesting cinematography in that scene where we're meeting him and his older brothers and setting up that dynamic, that tense dynamic between him and his older brothers and his dad. It keeps going back to this, like, extreme close-up on Preston's face, which is just kind of, like, an interesting kind of claustrophobic shot for this kind of a film. Again, just interesting work that Bill Pope was doing to just start the movie off visually interesting, and does a good job. Like, the movie is visually interesting throughout. It has a lot of that early 90s MTV pizzazz.
Yeah, it does. With the editing, I think, is key there.
For sure.
I mean, as well as, like, the Bill Pope cinematography, like you said, as well as I was also a big fan of the soundtrack.
Yeah, I like the soundtrack quite a bit.
The soundtrack had a very, like, the what's the Ferris Bueller song? The Ooh Yeah song.
Oh yeah, that's Oh Yeah by Yellow. Yello.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Who are
It just
two weird Swedes who are still making music. It's great.
Yeah, it felt very like kind of inspired by that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like you heard that song and they're like, let's make a whole soundtrack based off of that.
And I'm fine with that. I love Yellow. I love that song, and I love that kind of sample based burpy, boppy, poppy kind of thing. There was a joke when some of the kids are making fun of Preston. Preston's kind of an outcast. He has a goldfish named Alan. He named the goldfish Alan. These kids call him Presto the Pesto, and that took me a minute because I just thought of, pesto like I put on pasta, and I didn't understand why they were calling him a pasta dressing.
You're like, that sounds delicious. Why?
Yeah. But I mean, like, this is in that first 10 minutes. Everything is just like setup. Everything is character. Everything is plot. It's really good.
They do the, he does the save the cat thing where save the cat refers to an act in which you like feel for the main protagonist, and the whole sequence of him only having $6 going to the theme park and not being able to enjoy all the things that everybody else is and seeing these sad, ways in which he had to like watch is the way to build sympathy there.
And I also found it really amusing, like he's standing at the Logjammer ride with his cotton candy, watching his friends on the Logjammer ride, and is then aghast when he gets soaked by the Logjammer ride.
Yeah. I had no idea what was coming.
Like, where'd you think you were, kid? Like, this is the amusement park.
Yeah. Didn't the previous one just soak it like 10 seconds ago?
Yeah, right? So, like, the great setup continues. Miguel goes to the bank and does all the crime stuff. I want to call it the outfit that he's wearing at the theme park. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember wearing so many clothes that looked like that. Was that just like the little, like, dressed up for a party outfit that he was wearing?
Yeah. I remember wearing a lot of, like, shorts like that and those kind of polos.
Oh, yeah. That's what it was.
That looks like stuff you wore.
Yeah. At the bank, Preston has this line. There's a statue of a man with the world on his shoulders, right? There's like a statue of Atlas, and he looks up at the statue and is just like, "I know how you feel." And I'm just like, "What?"
I thought the same thing. I'm like, "Oh, is he really that like under so much pressure?"
Like he really feels that put upon as an 11-year-old with $6. Yeah. Or did he try to deposit 11? Was that what he tried to deposit?
It was 11, yeah.
The 6 was he had 6 for the amusement park and 11 for his bank account. Yep. Yeah. What else here? Oh yeah, so Miguel is pitch perfect in this scene where he runs over Preston's bike and winds up handing him the blank check because he sees the police are pulling up. So he doesn't finish writing the check to reimburse Preston for the broken bike. He just signs it, hands it to him, and leaves and says, "Your dad knows what to do with this." When Preston comes home with a destroyed bike and, this story, his parents are just angry. They're not at all concerned for the fact that their child...
I don't want to hear this story.
maybe almost just died and was, like, assaulted by a stranger? Like, no, go to your room. You are grounded. Like, what the...
Yeah, no, agreed. That was a weird thing. And that also, there are quite a few like Home Alone similarities as we've spoken about with the, the goon criminals chasing the kid at the end. But like also like this scene very much reminded me of when, the Macaulay Culkin character is yelling about like how he doesn't want this family. And he wishes that he was alone and that he could make them all disappear. That's what Preston is doing in this scene because he talks about like, I want my house, I want my money, I want my rules.
Yeah, you're right. That is a huge parallel between Home Alone and this movie. That's a very good point. This is about the point in the movie where Preston makes the check, showing, like as we said, like a fantastic understanding of 1994 word processing. Really slick stuff. I even wrote I should be taking more notes on this, but the movie's moving so fast and efficiently that I wasn't thinking of much to say. And the scene between him and Michael Lerner when he gets the cash is just really funny. Like,
Yeah.
I do think that scene is really funny. I think I wrote down. I think Tone Loc threatens Michael Lerner with a bullet from his finger gun.
He does. Yeah.
He does his hand like this and threatens a bullet, and it's like, okay.
Are you implying you're going to come back with a real gun?
Are your fingers loaded? Yeah. Preston's first purchase is he buys this castle. He buys this castle, right? Which was on the market.
You go ahead.
He's gonna buy it for like Miguel. He outbids Miguel because Miguel is looking for an inconspicuous villain hideout. So he's gonna buy this
Miguel's
castle.
offer that they're about to go on is $150,000. Which even in '94, for that place, I'm like, what reality is this?
And then Preston eventually offers $300,000 plus closing costs because he understands closing costs at 11 years old. So I also tried to flag every time he makes a purchase in the movie, because he spends way more than $1 million in the 6 days that apparently this movie takes place.
Oh my gosh, yeah. As soon as all those trucks like line up the street,
that's just like up until then I'm like, okay, he probably still has money, but then he like ordered the whole Sharper Image, it seemed like. And remember the Sharper Image?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So yeah. Oh,
when you see everything he spends, I'm like, why didn't they make this like $10 million?
Right.
Or
they could have
something?
made it any amount of money. It could have been $5. I think even this movie's saying $5 million. They could have gotten away with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have believed that he spent $5 million in 6 days. I made the note, I don't think this movie did for Mac computers what E.T. did for Reese's Pieces. I do not think the same effect happened. Making the, even though he took the character name Macintosh because that's what he saw. My brother got his old internet handle similarly because he was standing in front of an Iowa boombox with a peace sticker on it and then started calling himself Peace Iowa.
Awesome. So like some personal stuff regarding like the house thing is the house that like we recently purchased, like the name of the people who previously owned it was Macintosh.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And they had quite a few iMacs in it. There were quite a few Apple products. I'm like, wow. They really like just embraced that name.
I mean, if there was Brunel computers, I would probably feel maybe a little bit like I should buy Brunel computers, but there's not.
Yeah, and also this house, I found it on Zillow. Its estimated net worth is $4.4 million.
Holy crap! Wow.
But also, I've got like a little graphic of how it looked in the film and how it looks somewhat recently.
Yeah, that's up now.
Yeah, which it's got quite a few vines they had to overgrow it.
Yeah, needs some considerable work. Were these shots? So these pictures you pulled are from Zillow?
No, these shots in particular, somebody who's a fan of the film went and visited the house. So he was trying to recreate these shots.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I'm like, did they recreate the angles from the film in the Zillow listing? Because that would be like unbelievably impressive.
Yeah, but also like the details on the house is, even though it's, the estimated value is over $4 million.
Yeah.
It's only got 2 beds and 2.5 baths.
What is all the space?
I know.
Water slides?
It's over 4,000 square feet. Yeah. And
water slides, sex dungeons, and billiard rooms. That's what I think is in that house.
I am so like, I do not understand this house.
Oh my God. Sorry, Renee. What is going on? I would love to get an interior tour of that house just to see how the space is utilized.
Exactly. But yeah, he buys it from these like this older couple that seems like they need to sell this house to just to live.
Yeah. And they want that $300K real bad. And Preston keeps his money in his backpack the entire movie. Like, it's just, he has a sack full of money, and that's what he spends the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
He hires
reasonable.
He hires his limo driver, who is his, Mitch? No.
No,
Pat? Dan?
It's up here at the
Why
top
can't I
here.
remember his name?
Henry.
Hires him, and they go on this adventure and spending spree, and like there's this techno cover of Money, That's What I Want, that plays during that I was just like, this is a really gaudy cover of this song. He buys, in this sequence, lots of clothes and accessories, TVs, sound system, super soakers, Nerf weapons, an expensive watch, and a trash can full of ice cream, as you so eloquently put it.
Yeah, like a giant trash can full of ice cream, which Henry like gets a similar one at the end of the film, and he like plops it down. I'm like, no, that's that's way heavier than the effort that he put into putting that down.
Totally.
Like, that would be so heavy. That would be just an insane.
It seemed like a 20-gallon tub.
Yeah. Also, like, what ice cream place did he go to? Like, it seems like it's pretty late in the day, like at least like 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And some kid like rolls in who's like 11 years old and like demands a trash can full of ice cream, and I'm working there. I'm like, no. Like, this is ridiculous.
It's Haagen-Dazs. They show a Haagen-Dazs store build banner before they get the trash can. So yeah, Haagen-Dazs sold it to the kid. When they're driving home, the limo happens to drive by Shay. Just so happens to drive by the banker that Preston has already fallen in love with through their one interaction at the bank. And he took a flyer of her with her on it. I can't remember why the flyer existed, but he has this picture of her in his room.
It was right outside the bank.
So, and then we get to this scene where they're unloading all the trucks, and it's this huge, it's like 4 film crews worth of trucks outside of this mansion. It's messing up the whole neighborhood. And we see a security system, like many cafeterias worth of food that one person couldn't possibly eat. A sharper image truck. Were there sharper image trucks? You bought the water slide.
All the like Oreos and Chips Ahoy.
Could there possibly have even been any money left after this? I don't think so. But and I do want to say, I think this movie, along with Biodome, are primarily responsible for my familiarity with I Want Candy, performed by Bow Wow Wow. Which is, I love Bow Wow Wow. Bow Wow Wow is a very, very weird band that has some probably actually really problematic things going on earlier in their career. I love Bow Wow Wow, and I think this movie and Biodome are to blame, ultimately.
This movie, it's funny, 2 Disney films, this movie and Heavyweights are what I familiarized that song with.
Interesting. Yeah, that song had this soundtrack resurgence in the 90s. I know one of the guys who was partially responsible for that. I used to work for him. He sucked. If you want to know who sucks, look up who did the soundtrack to Biodome, and you will have the name of who sucks. That guy sucked. Oh yeah, I worked for him when you lived here.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Oh.
See, you know.
The stories I heard.
But I got to hang out with Alice Cooper one day because of that job, and that was cool.
Oh, yeah.
And more stuff he bought. A 2-player arcade cabinet, a bouncy wall playground set, computers, a huge mahogany desk, a wall of televisions, accoutrement, and personal tailors. Oh, and Angela made a really great observation at this point in the movie, and this totally blew by me. The bad guys go looking for Preston. They're out looking for Preston all over because he has the money. and they go looking at the water park, and we're seeing Preston at home play with the slide and the pool that he's installed in his house. If he hadn't have done that, they would have found him at the water park.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was a very good catch.
That is a very good catch.
What else we got?
I do like that
pink
they just like decide to go like, let's just go to places where kids hang out. We're gonna find the one kid.
I mean, yeah, like Bill and Ted has a similar thing. It's like, where would Napoleon go? The water park.
What if they had run into Napoleon at that water park?
It would have been a better movie.
Like, yeah, that further goes into like the your theory.
Total media interconnectivity.
And Napoleon's really into ice cream, isn't he? What if they run into Napoleon at the Haagen-Dazs?
See, this could be a shared universe with Bill and Ted, easily. So yeah, what do we got? What's going on in the movie now? Shay comes to the house to try to meet McIntosh after the marked bills that the FBI put out there that Preston has. He doesn't know they're marked bills, but they are. And when the real estate agent goes to deposit the money paid for the house, Shay finds the marked bills and then wants to track down McIntosh. So she just goes to the house and instead finds Preston. And Preston somehow, again, he gets Shay to agree to go on a date with him. It's weird. And it's also interesting. I think this is another thing that Angela pointed out is he's like, Preston's like an outcast, right? And he's not super social, doesn't have a lot of friends. Flirting ability off the charts.
I don't know.
Off the charts. Thought it was interesting. And then Henry proceeds to give dating advice to an 11-year-old. So he's part of this whole weird problem the movie has in that way.
But I think, but Henry's like perspective of it, I think he's just like,
he has a harmless kid perspective on it, I think.
Yeah, that's how I think he's like, oh, this is not really going anywhere. This woman, she's got her wits about her. She's not really going to lead him on. I'm just gonna like play along with the kid. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
no, and it's not like he gives him advice specifically for going after an older woman. He's just kind of giving him friendly adult to child future dating advice. It's not none of it is particularly bad advice, as I recall. It seemed all like fairly innocuous and reasonable advice. Maybe
like lining your pockets with Ziploc bags and taking things from a buffet.
That's just a life tip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone walking by would assume that was a mother boy situation. Oh, that's hilarious. So yeah, what else is going on now?
Well, this is where I realize that this film has just as many montages as Rocky IV.
It does.
It's got like I like started to take note of all the montages. We got the birthday party at the theme park at the beginning.
Okay.
We've got kind of a montage once Preston gets the money and he's like running away and splashing through the water and everything, and he's so excited.
Yes.
Then Preston spending the money with Henry that night.
Yep.
Then Preston playing with all the toys he got with the money with Henry. And then after Henry gives him this advice, they have another montage where they go back to playing with the toys, but these are like all the like physical training toys. Like we're going to box and we're going to like sumo wrestle.
Yeah, the gyroscope machine, the sumo suits. Yep. Was it 5, or do we have more montages that follow these 5?
Yeah, and then there's kind of a montage near the end where sad Preston realizes he has no friends, and he goes and he sees all the kids with, normal amounts of kid money just playing at a park.
Yep. You're right. Yep. So that's 6 montages. That is a heap. That is a whole heap of montages in a single movie.
Yeah. That's why they got those editors.
Yeah, that's interesting. That didn't really hit me when I was watching it, but that is a really weird prevalence of the montage.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really great. It's about this point in the movie. Preston is having dinner with his family, and he's dressed up in this like actually kind of amazing suit, this amazing blue suit. All of his like dress up clothes in this movie are like brilliant wardrobe. They're so.
Oh
good.
yeah, I really liked them.
I should have. I can look up who the costume designer was, but there's this really great shot. It was just another like moment to note the cinematography where like as he's leaving, he turns back to face his family, and it's this perfectly symmetrical thing where Preston is right in the middle of the frame in the foreground. The next furthest deep are his two brothers on either side of him, and then on either side of them are the parents sitting at either end of the table. And it's this really wonderful symmetrical shot of the family as Preston bails and leaves them behind to go out on his date. Costume designed by Deborah Everton. Fantastic job. I think actually the wardrobe throughout this movie is actually really, really good. She also was costume designer on The Abyss, Highlander 2, Lawnmower Man 2, The Craft, Star Trek First Contact. Dick, Virus. Not Dick Virus. Those are two different movies. Spy Kids. Oh, check this out. Frakes hired her again on Clockstoppers, his last theatrical film.
Oh, interesting.
So that's cool. So Deborah Everton, great job on the costume design in this movie. So then we get to this fancy dinner date where Preston hits on Shay so hard with like prepared questions on note cards about her dating history and life, and gives her expensive jewelry.
She's given every opportunity right now to make things clear and to shoot him down gently.
And does not. Chooses to continue to engage to the point where they leave that restaurant to go out to get burgers, and then Preston takes her on a romantic romp through the fountain near the burger place. And if that was a scene between two people of the same age, it would be this really cute, really nice romantic scene. Instead, it's just weird. But it's beautiful looking. It's beautiful looking. I mean, that sequence is straight out of a music video. Like the roots of the people who made this movie are showing very clearly in this sequence. And I think the cap, like the icing on this weirdo cake that is this scene, is like bystanders applaud them afterward. Like there's there's just like a gaggle of people who are just like, "You go, young boy. Yes, good job."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
As soon as the fountain starts up, Shay screams something. And I had to go back and I looked at I watched the scene several times, and according to the subtitles, she yells, "Holy smokes!" But it does not sound like "Holy smokes." I will put the actual audio into the podcast, and you can tell me what you think it sounds like.
I'm kind of excited to revisit that once you put out the audio edition. But the bad guys find them here right now, right? Like they almost get caught, but then the fountain attacks them and they're able to get away, and Shay is like none the wiser. It's hijinks. And then I think aside from the end where they actually kiss, this scene in the limo was maybe the most troubling to me in terms of like the flirtation between the two of them, because like even after all that, she's still reciprocating just as much. And they're like alone in a small enclosed space, and that just feels so much weirder than that same thing when there's at least other people around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and the fact that like they're both wet from the fountain like adds another layer to it, which are like, oh, this is
I mean, like
this is too intimate. Somehow.
Exactly. Like it's like getting caught in the rain together, taking an unexpected dip in your clothes. That's a very tropey romantic movie, like romantic drama, romantic comedy kind of thing. And then when you just reskin that with an 11-year-old, it becomes like very weird. So they're planning Preston's birthday party now. There's a party planner. There's go-karts. There's a batting cage. There's a virtual reality game machine. And the party planning person is a very extreme character.
Yes.
She is a very extreme character that seemed to come out of like some other movie somehow.
Yeah, I looked her up because I'm like, oh, she's got to be from like she was in Fame. She was in both the film Fame and the TV series.
Interesting.
Yeah. She was also in quite a few episodes of Grey's Anatomy. So.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah.
So
she was also in Sea Bear and Jamal.
Yeah. I watched that show a lot. There was this weird era where like I feel like my morning shows were Sea Bear and Jamal and Bruno the Kid. Which was Bruce Willis's like little boy spy cartoon.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with Bruce and Bruno.
I do
as a
know that
concept.
Bruno as his
But like Bruno the Kid was like a kid super spy animated series that Bruce Willis did the voice for, and I think probably produced, you know. But like, I have Bruce Willis's album, The Return of Bruno. I bought that at like a Bowling Green record sale sometime. Do have that relic somewhere. So party playing person. Oh yeah, Preston learns that money can't fix loneliness. That's that montage that you mentioned a little bit ago. Oh yeah, and he goes to the park to try to just like have fun with kids, I guess. And then
you know what? I didn't count the. I just realized I didn't count the fountain sequence as another montage. Was it?
7.
Which it definitely is.
7 montages. You're right. That's totally a montage. So the bad guys find him in the park again, and then their choice of how to pursue him is literally just drive through the park with the car that you have.
Drive through it, run after him into the creek.
Like I would think that them being inconspicuous would be the thing, but it seems to not even matter.
Let's track him and see where he goes.
And there is a weird continuity error here, I think, where like. So Preston goes tumbling down. He tumbles down the stairs on the bike, and Tone Loc goes after him. And as Preston peels out of there and gets away from Tone Loc, we look back, and the backpack has been left by the stump of a tree at the bottom of the stairs. And then when Preston eventually circles back into the park, there's like a frisbee guy that picks up the pack from the middle of the field out in the middle of the park, and I do not understand how it got from tree to middle of the field.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Also, how much money did that guy get away with?
Right, he got a stack of cash.
Yeah, that's like probably at least $10,000.
I'd think, and that's huge because Preston can't pay the party planner later. And did he account for that in his spreadsheet that we see at the end of the movie? That he just like
random guy in park
$10,000. Purchase everything at this party. One of his brothers is wearing a shirt that says "Shoot hoops, not drugs." Very 90s slogan. I agree. Do not shoot drugs. Bad. I agree with the shirt mostly. I don't really care about basketball, but don't shoot drugs. Bad idea. Oh yeah, so there's all these inflatable things in Preston's backyard, you know, that are like inflatable playground stuff and inflatable pool stuff. I think I spotted an inflatable trash can.
Wow.
That seems like a really bad idea, but I'm pretty sure I saw an inflatable trash can.
Interesting.
Party gets started, and again, Preston's wearing an incredible suit. Like it's a plain. It's not a plain white jacket. It's like it's a white jacket with gold trim that is and it might look like it might have been a satin jacket.
Yeah.
And like this great matching tie and vest with very cool patterns on it. Liked it a lot. Preston gets presented with the bill for the party and learns how money actually works and finds out he's broke.
Yeah, which again, well, he goes up to the office and he's like, all right, let me put this invoice in there.
Right.
And I'm like, he's got this whole program where that's been tracking all of his expenses. And for some reason, this like snuck up on him.
Yeah, it seems like he's like using like whatever fake movie version of Excel, you know, like a nice looking movie Excel. And was somehow unable to foresee that he wouldn't be able to pay for the party. And it's also at this point where like Preston's dad is coming in looking for looking for Preston, but thinks he finds Macintosh. He walks into Macintosh's office, and Preston is turned around in the chair. So the dad just starts talking to him as if it's Macintosh, and it's a nice scene where the dad goes into like, I don't think I've been paying enough attention to him, and I don't think I've been reevaluating, blah blah blah. But just as a character thing, that's like an extreme left turn for that character that is completely unprecedented. We don't see an arc with the dad at all. It's just the dad goes this way, and then he starts going this way, and there's no actual character thing for it. It's just like the movie wanted that at that time, so they did that.
He just, throughout the movie, he keeps realizing, oh, Preston's not around.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, and his career might be going better than mine. Maybe I should pay more attention. It's like, it's this weird, it rings false. It's a nice speech, but it rings false.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he's abandoned by his family and his driver.
Yeah. And his not friend, but his acquaintance whose birthday party he went to, the bad guys get him, and they get the information out of him by like holding him at the top of a skyscraper.
Yeah.
Which it seems like the only reason they went to that skyscraper was to intimidate this kid.
I think so. And I actually wanted to bring that kid up. I can't remember what his character's name is in the movie, but in I know another movie he's in the Alex Winter film Freaked, as Stewie Gluck, who's like the annoying super fan of the main character. And Alex Zuckerman, that's his name.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really funny in Freaked. That thing he does a couple times in Blank Check, his scream like that he does. That's like just what he does in Freaked. That's like almost his entire performance in Freaked. And he's really funny.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I love that kid.
Yeah. And the bad guys, they get the information out of him, and then they go and they bust down Preston's front door.
Yeah. And
trying to find him.
And there's a really cool smoke atmosphere effect. Again, like a very music video-y moment. There's diegetically no reason for that light or smoke to be pouring in from the doorway of that house, but it just looks so cool, so who cares?
Looks like it came right out of Thriller.
Yeah, it was just good. And then Preston, at his birthday party, gets on the mic and says Macintosh is gone and gets everybody to leave and blah, blah, blah. That always reminded me of a similar scene at the very end of Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, where the main character has to come clean to a party that was started under false pretenses. Love Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. That's probably problematic, too, in ways that I don't really remember.
It's another one I've not seen.
Oh, man. You should. I think it's probably really funny, and David Duchovny has really funny slicked back hair. And so once he makes that confession and the party planner tells the guests that Macintosh isn't paying and that Macintosh is a fraud, the guests just start bailing and looting the gift table. Did you find that weird also?
I didn't really pay attention to that, but I guess I assumed they were taking the gifts back that they brought. But
I think if you look at that moment, you'll see it seems a lot more frantic than anyone looking for what they put there and taking it. It really looks like people just like, oh, Macintosh is gone, I'm just going to take whatever this is, and then leaving.
They just turn into animals, start taking the
absolutely
the gifts. Why not take some of the toys?
Yeah.
They take the ladies' extensions.
They do, yeah. Again, looting. They're looting the birthday party. And who are these people? How did so many people get invited? That's another question, too. Like, did the party planner decide who to invite? Who decided they were coming to Macintosh's birthday party, and how were they?
The who's who.
Yeah, the who's who of people that Preston doesn't know. Yeah. So, I did make the note. I did make the note that this movie, I think, is the movie that made me want a video wall when I was a kid, which I still want today. But specifically with tube TVs, like if the pixels aren't square that make up the video wall, there's no dice.
Because then that's basically the what they shoot the Mandalorian in.
Yeah. See, the job I used to work for, this AV rental warehouse, there was a point where they were getting rid of a bunch of these. Let me show something. This is pretty heavy. It's a few pounds, but this is a little like 5-inch professional preview monitor. They were getting rid of hundreds of these. I wanted to take every single one and just make it a wall, but that's not easy to justify, so I only took 2.
Just imagine the power bills.
Exactly. That's the problem, too. Like, flat screens would be very power efficient. Like, you could probably run a wall of flat screens and not have it mess with your power bill so much. Not the case with a wall of tubes.
Yeah. Oh, I see one of those and I just think of I see those and I think of Jurassic Park at the beginning, because that's what they're looking at the Velociraptor skeleton with.
Oh yeah, like just the little monitor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do actually really like this thing. I use it as a preview monitor when I'm doing like video, like analog video preservation stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, this I should have referenced my notes when I was doing research. You talk about this bit in the movie. I'm going to look up one thing.
Okay. So everybody's looting the party, and then the bad guys show up, and then we get a very Home Alone-esque sequence in which Preston is getting away from them, and he's using all the toys that he bought to take them out one by one. For Tone Loc, he uses the classic baseball batting cage.
Yep.
And then for Biederman, he drops from the ceiling and puts a VR headset on his head, and just makes him like seem like he's tripping balls, I guess.
I know that was my favorite of the 3 bad guy eliminations. Was the VR, like dropping down from the bungee thing. That was so good. And
like there's a bunch of like different sounds going on, and one of the sounds during that sequence is I swore I heard a Tusken Raider shot.
That would not surprise me.
Yeah, which I mean just means they took a donkey sound,
right?
But it could have been the same one.
It could have been the same sound.
Yeah.
I did make the note that I love the scene where Preston confesses the entirety of the situation to Miguel. Mm-hmm. And Miguel kind of loses it, and then they go on this, like the scene that immediately leads up to the Home Alone antics. I really like Miguel in that scene. Thought he was really great. And it's also in this scene in the movie where Angela realized that Preston is wearing Chuck Taylor's. And the thing that I just said that I have to check if this movie is referenced on chucksconnection.com, and it is.
Oh, good.
So, you're welcome, webmaster of chucksconnection.com. And then, he traps Miguel in a hamster ball, a giant human-sized hamster ball. And
then shoots him off into the pool.
Yeah, which in other movies could have been a death sentence. To put someone in a giant metal ball that would sink to the bottom of water that's latched. That's a really great way to drown a person, but not in this movie.
Yeah, this time it actually comes open, but it still looks like Miguel drowns.
Yeah.
But he's just fooling him.
Yep. And then the police show up, Shay shows up, day is saved. Miguel claims to be Macintosh.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why he thought that was a good idea.
They want to arrest, they're obviously there to arrest Macintosh. Why would you say that you're that person? And also they're going to figure that out immediately because there is no Macintosh. You don't have a social security number. You don't have a driver's license. There's nothing. We also learn in this scene that Shay Stanley used her real name in her fake banker job. She says Shay Stanley, FBI, and shows her badge. So that was just her name in the movie.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And then we have the super creepy kiss, which we've discussed at length by now.
Mm-hmm.
We have this last scene with Henry, the driver, and a second trash can full of ice cream, which is actually a really sweet little scene where they kind of say goodbye, and then the limo driver is like, oh, great, now I have a free trash can full of ice cream.
This is mine now.
And I noted
I paid for it with my own money.
I also noted that it's only at the end of the movie that I'm realizing that everyone far too easily accepted conceptually that an anonymous rich person would be employing an 11-year-old boy, and that there was nothing to question about that.
Which
is by itself
Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
and
I mean, but that's still
Dick
weird.
Grayson.
That doesn't make it not weird. So that's a thing I did not even think about that till the end of the movie. But everyone is just like, oh yes, not only do we not think it's weird that Macintosh's right hand is an 11-year-old boy, we will also happily take orders from you. Yes.
Without ever meeting our real employer.
Right. Like, what? Anywho.
Yeah.
That kind of encapsulates Blank Check, I think.
Yeah. Another weird, disturbing similarity that I brought up Jake Lloyd earlier, but I was also thinking of the fact that, like, in The Phantom Menace, you've got young 9-year-old Anakin, and he's like fallen for supposed to be like a 14-year-old girl, and you've got a similar thing going on. And
you do, except they get their date after he turns 18 in the Star Wars universe.
Yes, they do.
We never got the sequel to Blank Check to see how their date went.
And also throughout The Phantom Menace, the Amidala character is also acting as a decoy, just like Shay was, that like gets revealed at the end.
That's a really weird parallel.
Yeah.
Oh. Wonder if Blank Check is a Star Wars movie.
Could be. Or maybe like George, when he was writing episode 1, is kind of like around the time this came out, and he watched. He's like, oh, I like the little boy falling in love with the older woman who's got like a secret identity.
And then maybe like the one piece of advice he took from Rick McCallum was Rick suggesting, George, you can't have the woman be 30. Okay, I'll cut the age in half. She'll be 14.
Perfect.
Okay, George. Okay, George. Quote Rick McCallum about literally everything. Okay, George.
Oh, that's another thing that Dan Madsen and the podcast I listened to, he said that he's got tapes upon tapes of interviews that he has with Rick McCallum that is just like full of gold. As far as like stuff, because Rick McCallum, he said, is just like a very, just like straight shooter. He'll give you like straight answers, and he was telling him all the sorts of stuff like, now don't print that, but
I would love to hear candid stories from Lucas's Yes Man. I would love that. But at the same time, I do place a lot of blame on what I don't like about Star Wars on Rick McCallum. So
yeah,
whether that's right or wrong, I could be totally wrong about where that blame should be placed, and I know a lot of it gets placed on George, and there's other factors too. But and I think I've even talked about it on the podcast before. There's a world of difference between Gary Kurtz and Rick McCallum. In terms of how they related to Lucas and how those relationships informed each other. That's a whole other podcast.
But yeah, that's a Blank Check.
A movie with weirdly a lot to talk about. Like heavy things, not just like broken mechanics, which is like a lot of what we talk about I think is broken mechanics. But this one had like large swaths of like if it's a painting, there's just a lot of wrong colors in the painting.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's technically a very nice painting, but a lot of the colors are like, what? Why?
Yeah. And there's even a moment where they're at the theme park, and Biederman, he's kind of concerned that they're all there looking for this boy, and he's like, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. And which like implies the exact thing that the movie is doing with the Shay character. Right,
exactly. That's exactly true. So, I mean, it's not like we're treading new territory on Blank Check here. This is well discussed online, but it's interesting for us to revisit because, I mean, we grew up with this movie, and it's really interesting to go back and see how something like this, like I said, like I loved that relationship between Preston and Shay as a kid, because that was like enticing to me as a little boy, and I'm sure it was to many little boys who watched this movie. And you know, that probably didn't do me any favors as I was growing up. I don't think it really manifested in any negative way, but I'm sure it didn't do any favors for like my general outlook about the way things are, quote unquote, you know, growing up.
Yeah.
So yeah, weird stuff that is available to watch for the entire family on Disney Plus.
Yeah, everybody dig in. And yet for some reason in Splash they had to like make the edit to to her butt.
Daryl Hannah's butt is so much more appropriate than a third of Blank Check. That is my assessment of a percentage. Yeah. Daryl Hannah's butt is way more appropriate. It's just a human butt. Come on. It's butt.
Butt to face.
Butt to
butt
face.
To face.
Yeah, they sleep. Butt to face. Butt to face. Butt to face. I'm sorry, I like butt jokes too much. Butt and poop jokes. A boy born as poop. Anybody who didn't know, Blippi...
I was about to say, I don't think anybody else is going to get that.
Travis introduced me to the concept of the human called Blippi recently. And Renee, if Jackson is listening, just mute it for about 30 seconds. Before he was Blippi, he was a guy, Steezy Grossman, and he pooped on a friend of his for a Harlem Shake video. Like, he literally, like, the video was online, he poops on his friend, and the character's conception was of Skeezy Grossman, a boy born as poop. A multi-millionaire children's entertainer, Blippi, everybody. He paid a lot of money to unsuccessfully have that video scrubbed from the internet, I learned. Because if you look hard enough, it's absolutely still available. But he paid a lot of money to try to scrub that film from that video.
You can't do it.
Can't do it. If Beyonce,
just ask George Lucas about that holiday special.
Just ask Beyonce about that one Super Bowl photo that she doesn't want. Oh, can I find it online and put it on this podcast? Oh, yes. This is the photo. Hang on, I will cut to it once the page properly loads. Great. Okay. Browser. Cut. Great. This picture of Beyonce that she tried to have scrubbed from the internet and did not work. Travis, are you watching the video stream? Can you see this, or is it up?
I'll see it in a few seconds.
Okay. Unsuccessful. This is, the first Google link that comes up. I'm not a fan of Beyonce. I'm not. I think she's a crass commercialist. In bad ways. But anyway.
For some reason, I didn't see that photo. Okay, interesting.
Is it not coming through on your feed?
No, it didn't come through.
Really? I wonder if we must be that delayed. Yeah, we all made stupid mistakes in our youths. That's absolutely true. I'm not at all shaming Blippi for Blippi's past. Blippi, you be that boy born as poop, my friend. You own that. You be that. I'm not shaming at all. Just I think it's real funny. I think art is where you find it.
Oh, I see.
Where you make it. Yeah, that picture. You finally see?
I mean, stuff like that, like you can, as I find out, when you're like watching things and you randomly pause, you're going to find things like that all the time.
Totally. Yeah, that's just a moment in time. A camera happened to go off, but then when like the photographer gave the photo dump to wherever the photo dump went, they're like, oh, this is a weird picture of Beyonce, publish.
It's just like, yeah. If people like, when I like do edits of things, like if people only knew like all the different things I see like of them while I'm editing.
Right.
Just like the weird facial tics and that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that kind of stuff. I used to have a Tumblr blog called Pause Control. That was just those in-between faces from weird pause moments. You know? Love that stuff. I love that stuff a lot. But also, point being, like, I wouldn't know about this picture if she didn't try to get it taken down from the internet.
Yeah, she just drew more attention to it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Our ladies are having a great time in the comments section. Thank you guys. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't have anything else. We're just chatting now.
Yeah.
About poop and Beyonce.
So, yeah.
Did you know Beyonce? One of Beyonce's former band members sued her for practicing witchcraft on them.
Oh no,
Yeah.
Maybe that kind
happened.
of sounds a little familiar.
I can't say for sure that the witchcraft happened, but the suing happened. Yeah.
Wow. So, Alex, what do we have in store for next week?
Oh no, is it my pick?
Yeah.
It's not. We're gonna watch A Gnome Named Norm. I don't see a way around it, really.
Okay. I had a feeling we're going there early on. I'm like, it sounds like we might be heading straight there.
Yeah, I think we just got to go. I mean, the rest of the movies on this list are great, and we want to discuss them, but it feels like, at this point, a huge oversight that we haven't discussed A Gnome Named Norm.
Oh, yeah.
So we're
I
gonna
remember
do that.
seeing this,
was on the
VHS.
It was on the Disney Channel a lot. It did air, and this movie is how I know the song Lowrider. So it is streaming free with ads on Tubi, like some of our other titles. Thank you, Tubi, for serving up this hyper-specific genre of content. Thank you. But like I said, this A Gnome Named Norm is I'm gonna re-verify, but I believe it is the only feature that was ever directed by Stan Winston, visual effects master Stan Winston. I think this is his one feature behind the lens of the camera. Yes. Oh no, my mistake. Second. The first was Pumpkinhead. So that is my mistake.
Okay.
So he made Pumpkinhead, then he made A Gnome Named Norm, and following that, it was like music videos, short films, parts of video games and stuff for directing credits. Of course, he continued to do a lot of amazing things. You know, like he worked on Aliens and Jurassic Park and the Terminator movies, and like Stan Winston was like
just everything.
Stan Winston was as close to like a god of special effects as there ever was. You know, the gorillas in Congo, the small soldiers in Small Soldiers, the creature effects in Lake Placid. I mean, like, yeah. Stan Winston, it's impossible to undersell the significance of Stan Winston's contribution to cinema. So we're going to watch one of his direct contributions to cinema, A Gnome Named Norm, streaming for free with ads on Tubi.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Yeah, great. That's going to be fun. And I'm not going to lie. So I was delineating this with Angela the other day, letting her know that when I say I've watched a thing as an adult, I basically just mean I've seen it since I've lived in Los Angeles, like since, which is like, you know, so I count myself as being an adult after age 24, I guess. But I've watched A Gnome Named Norm at least twice since my time in LA. I've seen it at least twice in the last 10 years. It's a very weird movie. It is a very weird movie. And I think the version that is readily available is a slightly cut version. I think there was a scene in a strip club that is removed from most versions of the movie. Yeah. Yep.
All right. So, everybody check out A Gnome Named Norm on Tubi next week. And until then, Alex, where can people find more of you?
Instagram and Twitter at Alex Brunel for angry reblogs and pictures of my cat.
Awesome. And you can find the show at Who Watches Pod on Twitter. We're on Facebook, where we stream live every week, as well as on YouTube and on Twitch. We are on Instagram at Who Watches Podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts. And please subscribe.
Yeah, check us out.
Reviews.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
Hit the like button on the YouTube views. That
yeah,
helps
that
with
helps.
metrics or something. I don't know how YouTube works, but we're using it.
Yeah.
So press the
And
buttons.
I have no idea how Twitch works, but if you're watching us on that
Zero
right now,
clue
thank
how-
you.
I watched a stream on Twitch recently, and they were throwing out all kinds of lingo that I just did not understand at all.
Oh, yeah. The chats that like pop up in those things. I'm like, oh, God, turn this thing off. I
Yeah.
don't
Agreed. So anyway, but check us out, subscribe. We would love to be your friend.
Yeah. And until next week, stay safe, stay sane, and stay smiling.